always sharp. I like that. Try that again. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Ajax Committee of Adjustments meeting for this Wednesday, April the 30th, 2025. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustments is being held in person in Council Chambers at Ajax Town Hall and is being live streamed for public viewing on the internet pursuant to the Committee of Adjustments terms of reference and meeting procedures. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess. While they are resolved, I thank you in advance for your patience. We'll now proceed with the meeting. For those joining this evening wishing to speak to an application in the audience or online, please wait for my cue when the participating application comes up on the agenda for that particular application. If you're attending in person and wish to speak, please approach the podium to, I guess, my 11 o'clock, if you will, and complete the sign-in sheet, including your email, so that dialogue can be reflected accurately in our meeting minutes. I'll now like to call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island, First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous people. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations, and move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Before moving on to the application portion of this meeting, I'd like to confirm whether there are any disclosures of interest from any members of the committee this evening. Okay, seeing none. Declared, I'd like to then see if any of the committee members would put forth a motion to adopt last month's meeting minutes. Amanda? Seconded by Ken. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, if not, I'll like to call for a vote. And the vote has been carried.
No, the blue says enter meeting. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if we can redo it. Sorry, folks. Okay. And the motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to quickly cover off the mandate of the Committee of Adjustments. The Committee of Adjustment derives its jurisdiction and the authority from the Planning Act. The committee is responsible for considering applications which seek to authorize the following: minor variances from the provisions of the town zoning bylaw, extensions, enlargements, or variations of the legal non-conforming use of any land, building, or structure, permitting the use of any land, building, or structure for any purpose that, in the opinion of the committee, conforms with the provisions of the zoning bylaw, where the uses permitted in the zoning bylaw are defined in general terms only, consent to sever a new lot from an existing lot, consent to alter the existing boundaries of a lot, such as lot additions and lot line adjustments, consent to register rights of way and easements over land, consent to sell, mortgage, charge, or enter into any agreement for more than 21 years of any portion of land, and validation of land title when there has been an error in the description of the land itself. When considering minor variances, the committee is to assess whether the general intent and purpose of both the Town of Ajax official plan and zoning bylaws are being maintained. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development and or use of the subject land, building, or structure, and the variance is minor in nature. When considering consents, the committee must ensure proposals conform to the Region of Durham and the Town of Ajax plans and have regard to the matters outlined under the Planning Act. In all scenarios, however, the committee must ensure consistency with the in effect provincial policy statements and conformity with the ineffective provincial plans, rather. The procedure for tonight's meeting will be conducted in the following manner. The applicant and or agent will be called upon and will be asked to provide a brief description of the minor variance and or consent application that they have applied for. The committee members will ask questions of the applicant and or agent, after which anyone with a direct interest in the application will be given the opportunity to speak either for or against the application. Once a motion is put forward to the committee, There will, however, be no further input from the applicant or agent or anyone else having interest in the application. After a decision is made, a notice will be sent out and there will be a 20-day appeal period. The decision of the committee may be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal, or the OLT, by the applicant or a specified person or public body as outlined in the Planning Act. Please note that the third-party appeals, i.e. appeals from the neighboring landowners or members of the public, are not permitted. The decision will become final and binding if no appeals are received within that 20-day appeal period. If a building permit or other approvals are required for your project, they may be filed during the appeal. However, please note no permits or approvals, rather, will be issued until the appeal period is over and the decision becomes final and binding. A respectful decorum during this evening's proceedings is expected at all present at all times. Let me now take a moment to introduce you to the committee members presiding over the procedures this evening. To my immediate right, I have Tomas Baca. To his right, we have Amanda Dunn, and to her right, we have Ken Elliott. I'm the chair of the committee, Wasif Ahmed, and to my left, we have Town of Ajax staff helping us with the audiovisual. And we've also got Eric Simpson and Henry Sang, who's the Secretary-Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustments. The first application for tonight's meeting is consent application, and you'll see the agenda to my left on the screen. So this is for LD 0325 and LD 0725 inclusive. Do we have somebody here to speak either for or against the application? So if I could have you come up to the podium, and while you're doing that, if I could just confirm with town staff whether notice was served on this application.
Mr. Chair, notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, sir. If I could just get you to introduce yourself first.
Yes, perfect. Mike Pettigrew, partner with the Big Leary Group on behalf of the owners of the property.
Okay, good evening, Mike. So as you can probably see, again, on the giant screen, that there is a staff report that was put together by our planning department, and a copy of which was given to all the committee members. It does list a series of conditions, which if we can pause there, I'll quickly read them out, and I just want to make sure that you can acknowledge and are aligned to these conditions. So the report itself does suggest approval to the committee based on the following 8 conditions: that the owner applicant submit a deposit reference plan for 40R plan that conforms with the dimensions of confirms the dimensions of the proposed severed and retained parcels to the satisfaction of the town. Number 2, that any zoning non-compliances resulting from the proposed severances be brought into compliance, that the owner applicant enter into development agreement with the town covering all requirements, financial and otherwise, of the town, that the owner applicant submit detailed engineering drawings which illustrate the functional law grading, design, servicing, easements, if applicable, and driveways for the proposed severed and retained parcels in conformity with the Town of Ajax engineering design criteria and standards. Number 5, that the owner applicant submit an arborist report and or tree inventory and preservation plan for the subject lands and 3 meters beyond the limits of the lands, and that no existing trees will be removed until the applicable financial obligations have been provided to the town. Number 6, that the owner applicant submit a noise study to the satisfaction of the town and the region. Number 7, that the owner applicant provide the necessary cash in lieu of parkland dedication to the town. And number 8, that the owner applicant satisfy the conditions and requirements, financial and otherwise, of all external agencies and governmental authorities. I'll take a quick break. Are you okay with all these conditions?
Yes, we've read the report, and we've gone through this with our client, and we are comfortable with these conditions and support the recommendation.
Okay, great. So now what I'll do is I'll give you the floor, and maybe if you can just tell us a little bit about this application to the committee and people that are here for entertainment purposes.
Perfect. So thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. As I said, Mike Pettigrew, I'm a partner with the Big Leary Group. We actually were representing the owners, as you'll hear in our presentation, for the previous severance and minor variance. This is a new application that is now seeking to sever existing, yes, thank you very much, that is seeking to sever the lots that were previously approved by this committee and were actually registered. So the lots that are being, that you'll see are already created, and we are simply looking to sever those in half to create the semi-detached units. So the site, as you know, is located at the southeast corner of Range Line Road and Pickering Beach Road. It's about 0.4 hectares in size, about 1 acre. And right now it is currently vacant. There were the previous approvals, and we're coming forward with this application here tonight. Next slide, please. So the previous approvals in 2021, those are the application numbers that were for the consents. And as I mentioned, those 5 lots are registered and they are in place. In 2022, we also submitted for minor variances for single detached homes on those properties, and those are the variances that were ultimately approved after an appeal to the OLT. And the appeal was dismissed, and the ruling of the Committee of Adjustment was therefore upheld. Next slide, please. So the current permissions, on April 7th and then subsequently on April 22nd, the Planning Committee and Council heard and then approved a rezoning of the property to the R2B zone to allow for the semi-detached units. And we submitted concurrently the application for the consents that follow and conform to the provisions of the R2B zone. So we are not seeking any variances to that zone. It is the standard zone that is going to be in place, and the lots that are before you today will actually exceed, positively exceed, some of those provisions. For instance, the semi-detached in the R2B allows for a 6-meter frontage. We're actually doing 7.62, which maintains the 15.24 standard from the single detached. We've just simply split those in half. So in terms of the familiarity or the similarities of this development to the previous, because we're maintaining those same initial 5 lots, the building massing in terms of the height, the coverage, and the setbacks are all going to be nearly identical. The difference here is instead of 1 unit, there will be 2 units on each of those lots. So in terms of the massing, these semi-detached will, for all intents and purposes, look very similar to the previous application for singles. And in terms of the parking, the previous single detached houses had a 2-car garage and 2-car driveway for each unit. The semis will actually have a single-car garage and a single-car driveway, so the same number of cars or garages and driveways and number of curb cuts are the same. They're just now paired. And so it doesn't actually generate any additional parking or any need for or disruption of any further landscaping on the frontage. As well, the municipal services for the site are right at the doorstep, and we understand that there is capacity as well for these 5 additional units. Next slide, please. So on the left, my left, I'm not sure for you, on my left, those are the 5 lots that was previously approved. And then on the right shows you how those lots would be split into 2, and those are the 10 different parts that it would create. And on the right there, it also shows the footprints. So you can see that there is still significant rear yards to these properties. They're quite deep. And so we're maintaining the same general footprints as the singles. Next slide, please. This might be a little bit harder to see, but I'm trying to show it here in the context. Actually, yeah, that's great if you can zoom in. That's the same drawing that you saw on the right, but now in context with the rest of the neighborhood. Again, to illustrate how those building footprints are very similar to the building footprints, and the rear yards and the setbacks around them are very similar to the single attached units and dwellings that are in the immediate surrounding. Next slide, please. And then this is the same thing, but I've just put just the building footprints there to illustrate that. So outside of those footprints, of course, the driveways that would be at the front, you can see the amount of open space that'll be in the rear yards for each of those properties. Next slide, please. So in terms of the policy context, and this was also looked at through the zoning approval that was gone through Planning Committee and Council, the proposal, and we agree with staff's opinion, is consistent with the provincial planning statement. It does conform to the Region of Durham official plan as well as the Town of Ajax official plan. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, it will conform with the R2B zone that is now in place based on Council's approval. And we are, again, not seeking any additional variances. There will just be the variances that run with the property previously. And then in terms of the overall Planning Act sort of criteria, again, these lots are consistent with what is in the area in terms of the 15-meter or 15.24 meter wide lots, but again, as 2 units rather than a single unit. It's maintaining the same driveway widths. They're not in excess, same amount of landscape and open space in terms of coverage, as well as the overall height and massing of the building, which in our opinion is consistent with the character of the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So therefore, in conclusion, we've reviewed the report, as we already mentioned at the beginning, and those conditions, and we are in support. And based on that, we recommend approval of the severance request subject to those conditions. And last slide is just any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Look to committee members to see if there's any questions. Please, Amanda, go ahead.
Through the chair, I have a question for staff. I understand that the zoning bylaw amendment was brought forth to the committee and council earlier this month and was approved, and it's subject to a 20-day appeal period. So I believe that would bring it to May for it to become in force and effect. Would it be appropriate to add a condition that the zoning bylaw associated with city files at 125 be in force and effect as a condition of approval?
Through the chair, yeah, we can certainly add that. We do have our standard zoning compliance condition already there. If you want to make it more specific, we can certainly do that.
So that would be to amend condition number 2. That any zoning non-compliances resulting from the proposed severances be brought into compliance? Are you okay with that?
Just the wording, what would the wording be for that condition, sorry?
Currently, right now, it just says that all zoning non-compliances be rectified. We could just simply state that the zoning bylaw amendment application, state the file number, become in effect.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Then certainly, yes. That's, I don't have an issue with that.
Good. Anything else, Amanda? No. Okay. Any other questions from committee? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, Mike. I'll now like to see whether there's anybody online to either speak for or against the application. No. Okay. Anybody else in the audience here in council chambers to speak either for or against this particular application for 951 Pickering Beach Road? Depends on what the question is. Come on up. And if I could just get you to start with your name. Okay. Good evening, Bernadette.
Just related to what Amanda had just asked, or just to state for the condition to be amended, it's for number 2 for the conditions that needed to be addressed, that any zoning non-compliances resulting from the proposed severances be brought into compliance. Do we know, like, can we know what those non-compliances are that need to be addressed?
I'll look to town staff for that.
Yeah, through the chair. So generally when we're doing severances, we always have a standard condition like that. So for example, say someone was severing lands and now as a result of that, the 2 lots would not meet lot frontage.
Okay.
That's what that's meant. So that if you
Okay.
weren't already applying for minor variances to rectify it, you would need to as a condition.
Okay.
In this case, there are no zoning non-compliances because we've already approved the rezoning for
Right,
these lands.
right.
We still just put that clause in there though. It's kind of like a safeguard.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. So other than the zoning that was changed, there are no other non-compliant.
That is correct.
Okay. And the only other question I had was for point number 5 regarding the arborist report. So I went through the arborist report. I actually live in the house right next to, so 957. And our trees, including trees in the backyard, are also on the arborist report. And there's no plan to protect them. And some of them are at risk. Some on the list from the arborist report state there's a risk and to protect, or to replace, and some say risk and have no plan, like nothing next to it. So I just want to address those, like if they're, what does that mean? Like if the arborist report itself doesn't say to protect it, does that mean that the builder is not obligated to, or not the builder, but the owner is not obligated to protect?
Through the chair. So these are trees on your property.
That's
so the development proponent doesn't have the right to just go destroy your trees. So any of the trees on the abutting properties are intended to be preserved. What we do is require tree hoarding to be put in place, and
Right.
like any grading that's very close to the lot line
Right,
would
right.
have to be done by different methods to
Okay.
kind of have respect for the tree root zones that would be
Right.
there.
Right.
So certainly they are intended to be protected.
So even if it's not in the arborist plan?
We will have drawings
Okay.
that still have to be approved.
Okay,
Specifically like a tree protection
Right.
drawing that would indicate that.
Okay.
If there was a desire to remove it, they would have to seek permission from yourself.
Okay, okay, fair. And just one last question. So just the placement of where this specific vacant lot is, it's saturated with like young families surrounding the lot. Is there any provisions that the city's going to like, I guess, condition for in terms of safety? So like fencing around the lot, because it's going to be quite a bit, like there's 10 homes going up, right? Or five dwellings going up. Are there any conditions regarding fencing around the entire subject lot?
So
During construction, sorry.
well, there'd be obviously what we call silt fencing and construction type fencing during construction, of course. That would just be a requirement for any type of development.
Okay, okay.
Are you talking about privacy fencing like after the
Yes.
fact?
Yeah.
That would be up to the owners of all the lots.
Okay.
There is specific fencing though, like the acoustic fencing, because there is a noise study for the corner lot that would have
Right.
to be put in place. But any kind of interior fencing or along the rear,
Okay.
it would be subject to the owners. Most owners are going to want fencing though.
Okay, okay. And just to clarify, sorry, in terms of the trees that are on our lot, I know that it has to go through the building like permit process. And so if hoarding or whatever is decided, do we get communication on that, or like how does that get passed on to the neighbors who are affected by those trees? Like,
Well, the owner won't be reaching out to yourself unless they're seeking to remove the trees. So feel free to reach out to staff to get an update, and we can keep you posted. But yeah, the intent would be to preserve them, and if it's not, they'll be reaching out to yourself.
okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks. You were good? Yeah. I think, Amanda, you have another question for staff?
Through the chair, based on the comments we just heard, could we include a condition that the owner applicant obtain consent from the budding landowners for any impacts to existing trees located on adjacent lands, and they provide consent to the town prior to the issuance of a building permit?
Yeah, staff do not have an issue with you adding that condition.
Is the applicant okay with the adding of that condition?
Yeah. We'll bring you back to the podium, Mike.
Thank you. Yes. So the condition that you're looking to add would be the applicant requires consent from adjacent landowners to remove any trees that are not on that are on adjacent lands. Is that the idea?
To remove or any injury or impacts to existing trees on adjacent lands, that you receive consent from adjacent landowners prior to building permit.
Yes. Again, if it's on adjacent owners, I don't think there's any issue there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anything else from? No? Okay. Was there anybody else here in the audience that wanted to speak either for or against this application? Okay. Again, we're on application for 951 Pickering Beach Road. Okay. Seeing none, then I'll look for a motion. Go ahead, Amanda.
I move that consent applications LD 0325 through to LD 0725 be approved, subject to conditions 1 to 8 contained within the staff report, and the additional 2 conditions related to the approval of the zoning bylaw being in force and effect, as well as the condition of consent for injury or removal of trees on adjacent lands. as this proposal complies with Section 5124 of the Planning Act and all applicable policies and plans affecting the subject lands.
Okay, noted, thank you. Can I get a seconder on that? Tomas, thank you. Any discussion on the motion as presented? Okay, town staff, you're okay with that motion, with the amendments? Thank you. All right, so seeing no other discussion, then look for a vote. Okay, so the vote has been carried unanimously. So we are approving this evening's consent applications LD 0325 through LD 0725 inclusively. And it'll now be subject to the appeal period. All right, thank you. Have a good evening, Mike. All right, moving along on the agenda, I think the next one we're actually going to move down. So agenda item 5B will move to the end, if that's okay with committee members. If anybody has any disagreement, speak now. No? Okay, we're good. Then we'll move to minor variance application A1125 for 67 Taylor Road. And do I have anybody here to speak for this application? Okay, sir, just while you're walking up there, can I confirm from town staff whether notice was served for 67 Taylor Road?
Mr. Chair, notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Will. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And if I can just get you to introduce yourself?
My name is Joe Pessoa. I reside at 67 Taylor Road.
Okay,
And I'm
amazing.
requesting a minor variance to increase the height of a garage in my backyard. It's a workshop, actually. It's not a garage for parking vehicles. There's no access, no vehicle access.
Okay. Do you want to maybe just continue down that path as to
Sure.
why you're looking for the minor variance
Yeah.
applications?
For aesthetic reasons, really. I don't plan on moving. I'm going to stay there forever. So I just thought for snow shed, even though the designer said it was okay, I just aesthetically it looks better to have the height of the shed to be what we're asking.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, fair enough. And before I look to committee members to see if they have any questions, on the giant screen beside me, you will notice that there is a staff report
Yes.
that was put together by our planning department in town of Ajax and forwarded to the committee members. And it does recommend approval of your minor variance application, subject to 3 conditions. And you'll see them in letters. I'll call them out for the purposes of the minutes as well, and for everybody else's benefit. That the subject variances apply only to the property municipally known as 67 Taylor Road, substantially in accordance with the drawings that were submitted with this particular application. That the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, and the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town. Contravention of any one of these conditions would render the decision null and void. Are you okay with
Yes, agreed.
those conditions? Okay, perfect. Then I'll then look to my committee members to see if they have any questions about this application. Amanda, go ahead.
Through the chair, sorry, I may have missed this. What is the use for the accessory building?
It's a workshop, so it's going to be split in half. I don't know if you have the diagram of it, but yeah. So I mean, it's going to have so the garage door. I'm just going to put like garden tools in there. Hopefully, at some time I might need a ride mower, so I'm just kind of getting ready for that. And the other side will just be a workshop. I got my bike trainer in there. The house is quite small. I downsized a few years ago. And so my bike trainer and my wife, we're going to use that for that. I also do stained glass as a hobby. So doing that inside the house with the fumes is not so good. So I want to be able to do that outside. So that's basically it.
So the garage door, you don't intend to have vehicles from your driveway
No, you
being
can't
driven?
access, it's at the back. There's no driveway or anything. No, no.
Okay, okay, that's all my questions.
Okay. And are you running any plumbing into this or any
No,
HVAC?
no plumbing, just electrical that I'll have to get permission for that. But I haven't done that yet, but there's no plumbing.
Okay, and any HVAC?
I don't know yet. I might put in like a mini split. I know my neighbor has one. But it's just going to be like a heat pump kind of thing, I think. That's what he has too beside me.
Okay.
I might do that. Do I need permission for that? I don't know.
No, I'm just trying to figure out whether there's ever going to be a time where this may be used for habitation.
No, not a chance. No, no. It's just my wife and I live in the house, and it's just for us.
My wife sends me to the garage all the time.
I might end
So-
up there sometime every now and then too, but not to
Alright.
live. Yeah, there's no plan for that at all whatsoever, no.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, any other questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none, then I'll look to see whether there's, thank you, whether there's anybody online to speak either for or against this application? No, don't see anybody. And is there anybody here in the audience that's here to either speak either for or against the application A1125 for 67 Taylor Road? Okay, seeing none, then I'll look to see if there's a motion from committee members. Tomas?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve application A11-25, subject to all staff conditions on the basis that it is minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the property, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, motion noted, thank you. Can I get a seconder, Ken? I see you, yep. All right, any discussion on the motion? Okay, then I'll look for a vote. All right, Joe, so you're been approved
Okay.
at this forum here. It'll now be subject to the 20-day appeal period, like I mentioned in my monologue at the beginning.
Yes.
But while you're doing that, you can still apply for any paperwork, building permits, that stuff. Just note that it will not be issued until the 20 days have lapsed.
Okay,
Okay?
that's fine. Yeah, thank you very much for the
Alright.
committee and the staff as well.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Smooth sailing. Thank you, Henry. Thanks.
Thank you. Good luck. All right, next on the agenda is item D, minor variance application A1225 for 701 Finley Avenue. And this is to permit a minimum setback for the north interior satellite lawn of 1.8 meters and to permit a minimum one parking space per 224 square meters of gross floor area for a public storage facility. Do we have an applicant or an agent here for this application?
Yes, hi.
Hi, good evening. Is that Heath?
It is, yes.
Okay, good evening, sir. So can I just get you to perhaps introduce yourself a little bit and your relation to this application?
Sure. Good evening, Chair and committee members. My name's Heath Pertel-Sharp. I'm a senior planner with Groundswell Urban Planners, and we're here on behalf of the owners of 701 Finley Avenue.
Okay, perfect. And so just before I hand it over back to you, Heath, can I just confirm with town staff whether notice was served on this application for 701 Finley?
Mr. Chair, notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. So Heath, I'll perhaps hand over the floor to you to perhaps if you could just brief the committee and audience on a little bit about the project itself, please.
Sure. I do have some presentation slides. I don't know if the preference is for me to share them or if the committee is bringing them up.
Yeah, we can go through them.
Okay.
You can share your screen. We just see a black screen. There we go.
Yep, there we go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Again, I'm a senior planner with Groundswell Urban Planners here tonight on behalf of the owners of 701 Finley Avenue. I'll provide a brief presentation outlining the minor variance applications that we're requesting this evening. The site, just for context for everyone here, it's located on the east side of Finley Avenue. It's surrounded by other mixed industrial and employment uses. The site is, as you can see, is currently vacant from any buildings or structures, and it does have an existing curb cut access off of Finley Avenue on the left side of the screen there. So the development proposal, we're currently working through a site plan application with the planning department, which proposes to develop the site for a small public storage facility. The development includes 3 storage buildings with a total of approximately 1,120 square meters of storage space. Buildings B and C, which are on the east side of the site, are designed to be individual units with roller doors that are more for drive-up access. And then the larger building A on the west side of the site is designed as smaller units with a common building entrance. We are proposing 5 parking spaces for this development, along with a large dedicated loading space as well. In support of our site plan application, we did submit a traffic impact and parking study that was undertaken by our consultant, JD Engineering. It assessed storage facility parking precedents in the surrounding area in both Ajax and Pickering. It conducted and obtained some proxy data from those sites, and ultimately it did conclude that the proposed 5 parking spaces would satisfy the peak parking demand for this development. Here we have a copy of the site landscape plan, just for some more context of the proposal. As you can see, the buildings are located toward the north side of the site, with the vehicle access into the site along the driveway to the south. The proposed parking is at the front of the site, which is on the west or the left side of this image. There is a landscape buffer and planting areas that I've highlighted in green around the property. And there is also an existing chain link fence around this site that is intended to be retained for the security of the storage facility. Again, just for some additional context, here are some of the building elevations that have been submitted as part of our site plan application. At the top here, we can see the building frontage of Building A on Finley Avenue, and the bottom image shows the larger storage units that have the direct vehicle access drive-up doors for buildings B and C. So the variances that we're requesting, specifically from section 5.10.2, which requires a parking rate of 1 space per 28 square meters of GFA for non-residential uses that are not specified a specific rate in the town zoning bylaw, as a public storage facility is not specified under this section. This is the standard required rate in the bylaw. So the variance that we're seeking is to permit 1 space per 224 square meters for the public storage facility. And the second variance that we're seeking is from section 6.4.2, which requires a minimum setback of 3.5 meters from the interior side lot lines, where our variance, we are seeking to permit a minimum setback of 1.8 meters from the interior side lot line, but this is limited to the north interior setback only. Here we have a drawing highlighting those variances, including the location of the 5 proposed parking spaces highlighted in blue on the left side of the image there, and clouded in the dashed red lines along the top of the image is the location of that 1.8 meter north interior side yard setback that is being proposed. That 1.8 meter area along that north boundary between the buildings and the property line is proposed to be a sodded landscape area up to the extent of the chain link fence. We provided quite a comprehensive assessment and rationale in support of the variances within the planning justification letter that we submitted with this application to the committee, so I won't go over it in detail, but in summary, we do believe that the proposal meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. These variances accommodate the development of a public storage facility, which is permitted under the general employment designation of the official plan, and the development conforms with the urban design guidelines that were specifically brought in for this area. And as such, we believe the intent and the purpose of the official plan is being maintained. The proposed parking standard aligns with the requirements for a public storage facility's needs, and the reduced setback is appropriate for the site design and maintains adequate space to accommodate separation for the property to the north, including being able to accommodate grading, landscaping, and fencing within this space. All other applicable zoning standards are being met with this proposed development. As such, the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, in our opinion, is being maintained, and these variances are minor in nature and desirable for the development of these lands.
Okay. Heath, can I just get you to go back to the picture where it shows the north interior side lot line? There's a question I had related to it. Okay. So the 1.8
Sure.
on the top right of that, or on the top, right, highlighted in red. What's to the immediate south of that that area? Is that, because I see the units in the pictorial, but are those units the drive-up units, or will there be cars? I guess my question is, will there be cars coming right up to that area, or is that from the inside only? On building
Maybe
A
it's
specifically.
better show it on this image here with the color differences, but is the concern on the east side of building A or the west side, the left or the right?
The top would be the north, correct?
The top is the north, correct?
Yeah. So it's those ones there that I'm more, my question is not concerned yet.
Okay.
But that is the one that I'm questioning. So I can see in the background of that yellow, I can see the units. I believe those are storage units, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Are those the drive-up ones, or the drive-up ones are only in building C and D, and those ones there are actually inside a building, a covered building?
That is correct. Building A is a more traditional warehouse style building with walk-in access storage units, and
Got
it's buildings B and C, which are demarked with these small triangles where the vehicle drive-up doors are, the roller doors.
Okay. So then the north interior south lot line relief that you're seeking is basically facing, or if I was kind of looking southwards towards your property, or this particular property rather, I would only just see a flat building. That's all I'm seeing, correct?
Correct, yes. There's no windows or anything in this sort of
Okay.
building structure that would be overlooking.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, I'll then look to other committee members to see if they have any questions. Amanda?
Through the chair, will Building A be staffed? Will there be an employee in Building A?
There may be an employee there from time to time to deal with rental arrangements, but I don't anticipate that there will be full-time staff on site for this proposal. It's intended to operate as an unstaffed facility.
Okay. And I have one additional question. The parking justification study that was referenced, there were two benchmarks that were used for surrogate sites in Pickering and I believe in Ajax as well. What were the parking rates applied for those two storage facilities? Might you have those? Did the parking study reference them?
Yes, I believe in that parking study, the two sites that it did look at were actually quite significantly larger than this one. Those sites were approximately 9,000 square meters of storage space. And in both instances of those sites, they were having, I believe it was 6 parking spaces at one and 7 parking spaces at the other. So that would be closer to 1 space per 14 or 1,500 square meters.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee? No? Okay. Then I'll look to see whether there's anybody online. You're waiting to speak to either for or against this application, staff? No? Okay. Then I'll look in the audience here to see whether there's anybody here physically to speak either for or against this application. Again, we're on application A1225 for 701 Finley. Okay. So seeing none, then I'll look to see whether there's a motion from the committee members. Ken?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would move approval of application L1225, subject to the condition as set out in the staff report. And the approval is minor, the requested variance is minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the property, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, motion noted. Thank you, Ken. Can I get a seconder? Amanda? Right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, then I'll look for a vote. Okay, so Heath, as you may be able to see on your screen, the vote has been carried unanimously. So the variance application here has been approved. It'll now be subject to the routine 20-day appeal period. And obviously you can file paperwork, building permits, etc., but they just will not be issued until the 20 days have lapsed.
Not a problem. Thank you, Chair and Committee.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
You
Right,
too.
we'll now move to the next application on our agenda, which will be application 5E. This is for 2963 Range Line Road. And it's minor variance application A1325. The application itself is seeking a variance on Give me 1 second. I apologize. Just catching up. To permit a maximum building height of 10.7 meters. Before I look for the applicant or agent, staff, if you can confirm whether notice was served on this application or whether any responses received.
Mr. Chair, notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay. And if I could just get yourself to, I think, sir, you're here to speak for this application or represent this application?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And if I can just get you to introduce yourself to the committee.
Hi, Mr. Chair. This is Sam Tabash. I'm a principal engineer from Q Engineering. This is a minor variance for application A13-25, as you mentioned, for a project located at 2963 Range Line Road. And we are requesting for a building height of 10.7 meters, and the allowable height in that area is 9.14 meter. And if you look at the summary of what it was prepared, it's the main reason is because of one of the reason is the type of the roof that we proposed for this structure. And so we have to consider the maximum height all the way to the top of the roof. If you want, I can share my screen as well. Can I share my screen too? Or
Yep.
Yeah, you
Well,
can.
I think you'll see this, some pictures that we have here. You tell us
Yeah,
whether you're
that's right.
comfortable with this.
Yeah, this is a 10.7 meter height. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I've read through the report, as sounds like you have as well. So there is a report that is recommending approval that staff has put together for the committee members. It is also subject to a handful of conditions. I just want to make sure that I'm going to read them out quickly for your benefit, the benefit of the minutes and the audience here in the room. That the subject variance applies only to the property municipally known as 2963 Range Line Road, substantially in accordance with the drawings that were submitted with this application. Number two, that the owner applicant obtain consent, obtain consent from abutting property owners for any impacts to existing trees located on abutting properties. That the owner applicant shall provide consent to the town prior to the issuance of any building permit. Number three, that the owner applicant preserve and protect any existing trees located within the town boulevard, and specifically the Range Line Road right-of-way, or compensate for such accordingly, replacement tree planting or cash in lieu of tree compensation, if preservation is not possible, that is. The owner applicant shall address this matter to the satisfaction of the town prior to the issuance of any building permit, or the decision shall become null and void. Number four, that the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. And lastly, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town for this project. Are you in alignment with those conditions?
Yes, and we already coordinate with the owner, and he's aware of all these numbers. Yes.
Okay. So when you say the other owners, you mean like the neighboring owners?
No, the owner of the property, and he already coordinated with one of the neighbors, correct? And he's also coordinating with the arborist for all the required permit if needed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That said, I will now look to committee members to see if they have any questions for the applicant. Okay. Seeing none. Like to see if there's anybody online wanting to speak either for or against this application? No. And is there anybody here in the audience at Town Council Chambers to speak either for or against the application A1325 for 2963 Range Line Road? Okay. Seeing none, then I will look for a vote from committee. Tomas?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve application A13-25, subject to all staff conditions on the basis that it is minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the property, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay. Would it be too much if I just added a little bit more specificity to condition number 2 that currently reads, and Tomas, it's your motion, so you tell us, that the owner applicant obtain consent from the abutting property owners. If we can just list which property those are within the thing. So I think it's like 2965 and 2960. Sorry, I'll get there in a second. 2961.
Mr. Chair, it's just 2 Cherry Road was the specific neighbor at hand. It's in the staff report.
So just the 2 Cherry?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
the condition's a little more general, but if you read through the staff report under the design services comments, you'll see the specific property at hand that we were talking about.
Okay. So then based on that, are you in alignment if we just add that very specifically?
Yeah, no issues with that.
Okay. So Tomas, are you okay if we just add that to say the 2 Cherry Road neighbor? Okay. All right, so motion's been amended. Can I get a seconder on the amended motion? Ken? All right, any discussion on the motion? Okay, then I'll look for a vote. So, sir, your motion, the motion has been carried as presented, or as amended, I should say. And it'll now be subject to the 20-day appeal period that I'm sure you're familiar with. And again, building permits can be applied for during this time. You can initiate the paperwork, but nothing will be issued until the 20 days have lapsed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, have yourself a good evening.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
The next application is agenda item number 5F, minor variance application A1425 for 528 Poplar Avenue. And this is to permit a building height of 10 meters, not to be confused with the 10.7 that we just heard. If I can get, sir, I'm assuming you're walking over for a good reason. So you're either the owner or the applicant? I'm the applicant. Okay, perfect. And if I could just get you to introduce yourself.
Gerald Stockla.
Okay, good evening. May I call you Gerald? Is that
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So Gerald, we have the committee members here have a report that the town staff has put together for 528 Poplar Avenue. And you see it on the giant screen over my left shoulder. It does recommend approval based on 3 conditions in there, that the subject variance applies only to the property municipally known as 528 Poplar, substantially in accordance with the drawings that were also submitted with this application, that the owner applicant obtained consent from abutting property owners for any impacts of existing trees located on abutting properties, that the owner applicant shall provide such consent to the town prior to the issuance of any building permits, that the owner applicant preserve and protect any existing trees located within the town boulevard, Poplar Avenue right-of-way in this case, or compensate for such accordingly, replacement tree planting or cash in lieu of tree compensation if preservation is not possible, that the owner applicant shall address this matter to the satisfaction of the town prior to the issuance of any building permits, that the owner applicant maintain existing drainage on the property, and the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits. Contravening any of these conditions would render the decision null and void. Are you in alignment with these conditions?
Yes, I agree with them.
Okay, perfect. So I'll hand over the floor to you, sir. Gerald, if you can maybe just tell us a little bit about the project.
All right, so the project is to build a single-family home. So the issues I think we have in that neighborhood is the existing grade is really low, and the standard for measuring grade in Ajax is from I think the apex of the middle of the road, which is a little different than what we're used to, for the neighboring grade to measure from. So in this case, because the road is actually, almost at the same plane as the land is, we have to, raise the land. But unfortunately, when we raise the land, anywhere else in jurisdiction, it wouldn't matter. We would still comply with the current regulations for height. In this case, we spoke with the planners and the town, and they kind of agreed that it makes sense to raise our grade up and apply for the variance to accommodate the structure accordingly. Essentially, for all intents and purposes, it meets I think the intent of the original planning for the area, and the relief that we're applying for would help get that done.
Okay, no, fair enough. I'll look to see whether any committee members have any questions. Amanda?
Through the chair, could you just confirm for us the driveway proposed is a two-car driveway? And the garage, is it a single-car garage or a double-car garage, which is proposed?
Let me pull up the drawing here so I can see it a bit better.
It does appear that the driveway is a two-car, looks to be 6 meters. I don't know if staff can confirm that if the applicant is not able to.
Through the chair, yeah, it would be a double car garage.
Oh, it's a double-car garage, and okay. I just want to confirm because it does appear through the staff report accessory apartment is also proposed through this dwelling, so parking complies for that, it appears.
Correct, the parking complies.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Amanda? No? Okay. Any other questions from committee members? No? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else here online to speak for or against the application? No? Okay. And is there anybody here in the room wanting to either speak for or against this application? Okay. And again, that's for 528 Poplar. Sorry, were you coming up to speak either for or against this application? Absolutely, yes. Okay, so sorry if I can just have you take a seat.
Okay.
And if you can just come up to the podium and introduce yourself, and we'll take it from there. Good evening.
Red is on?
Yeah, just maybe
Okay.
pull it down a touch.
Oh, sure.
There we go.
Rachel, we actually live right next door at 530 Poplar Ave.
Okay.
So this is a little bit new to us, so we're new to the neighborhood as well. We've been here for 2 years. Obviously being close to the water is fantastic, and having a really great view is fantastic right now because we can actually look out of the right side of our house and there's not an obstruction there right now. Obviously we knew that that would be short-lived, but I guess, so some of the questions that we would have pertaining to the lot would be just around I believe there's a cherry tree that actually has really deep roots that are actually underneath of probably about halfway into our backyard, underneath of like our actual pavement. So part of our parking where we park our vehicles. So what would the consideration for that be, I guess, considering that there are very deep roots adjacent to that property?
Yeah. So just hold that thought for 1 second. Can I just get you to go to figure, I'm on page 52. Yeah, that one. So you said you're at 520.
We're at 530.
30, so right
Yes.
above that, right? So one of
Yeah.
the multiple cars? Okay. So the
Yes.
tree that you're talking about,
Is in the backyard.
okay, right where that arrow's kind of going, where it says subject property, that?
Yeah,
or that
so
one
keep
right there.
going
Okay,
left. So
okay.
it's basically where you see the 2 cars that are parked there.
Yeah.
And then we have a garage in the back as well.
Right.
So the roots actually come up under part of our garage and into that pavement area.
Okay. Eric?
So just to confirm, the tree you're inquiring about is on the subject property, not your property.
Correct.
And you're wondering if it were to be removed, what would happen with the roots?
Yes.
Well, I assume they would just keep them. Usually they don't go to the extent to go and remove the entirety of the roots underground. It's too difficult. So you usually just bring it down to the level of on that property at grade. So they wouldn't be tearing up your asphalt driveway if that's what you're asking.
So part of that's already growing under the fence line that's there. So I would love to kind of understand what that would look like, because obviously you're going to have to, like, there's the property line itself, right? And then if there needs to be any sort of variance that comes over onto our property line, we just kind of want to understand what that would look like.
It's really a construction management issue for the builder, and it's something that they would have to look at when they're doing construction. So we do have building inspectors that are involved at that point in time. Someone can't just go and modify someone else's property without permission. We can have a more detailed look at that through the building permit, but there isn't a requirement for a specific arborist report for a development of this nature. Someone has the right to remove trees on their property currently in this area, and the town wouldn't be involved at all. So if there were issues with roots, it would become a civil matter. But because you are flagging it, we can try to look into it a little more through the building permit review process. But it is ultimately a civil matter.
Civil matter that is only happening because of this, right? So I think that's just a point that we wanted to kind of bring up as well. And then also, so now we're kind of seeing a trend, and obviously this is the forum for this, but with the variances happening in the neighborhood around South Ajax and near the water, is there, like, has anyone done like an actual study to identify like what exactly those building heights are in the neighborhood that are existing, or some of the properties that have been there for 35 to 40 years? Like, I guess just trying to understand if this is going to become like kind of the new norm with some of the new buildings that are going up.
Yeah, through the chair. This whole neighborhood, the Pickering Beach neighborhood, has transformed majorly over the last 20 plus years, I would say. The zoning standards were originally kind of set up for smaller cottage type style homes, and over the years it's turned into larger homes. Some already are 3 stories. There's been previous variances for heights. Some are 2 or 3 stories, or just working within the permitted height already. And a lot of that has to do with how we measure height, different roof styles. So it just really depends. But minor variances for new, larger homes in this neighborhood is very common.
So common that it will continue to happen? Like, that's something we should expect to continue to see?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, based on trend, right? Like to Eric's point, like I think just the trend that we're seeing, that, you know, it's hard for us to say that it will continue for sure, but the trend would indicate that it does, right? And it is minor though, right? Like again, like if we kind of talk about variances, but these are minor variances. And that's why we're here, right? To kind of judge to say, okay, well, how far offside are you, if you will? If the height requirement is, the bylaw says it's 10 and you're at 10.1, you know, that's relatively minor. We're talking about a foot, right? So, and then sometimes it depends on the type of the roof. In this particular case, it's a flat roof measured slightly differently. So that's why we're here. And again, talks about like the presenter was talking about before you. It also depends on the grading, right? So on how the grading is, or the height is calculated based on the grade of the road, et cetera. So, you know, it shouldn't, like, I'm hoping that it wouldn't be like monstrosities of 3 times the bylaw requirement, but, you know, it'll be probably slightly minor.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're just trying to understand as well, right? Like, is this going to start out at 10 where it's a minor variance going from the 9.14? Or is it then going to end up being the 10.7 that we just saw get passed and approved, right? So just, we're new to this. So I appreciate the...
Yeah, and based on your first comment, I think I'm glad you're here and you were able to speak on it, because like Eric said, like he's offering to help kind of just make sure that it gets part of the process.
Yeah.
Again, the tree does not exist on your property, so there shouldn't be any damage, you know, resulting from it onto your property, and at that point, you know, it will just go through the normal processes of building, you know, inspections, et cetera.
Right. And just the last question, sorry guys, I appreciate the patience. Is there, so once this, so assuming if this does get approved, and then there's the 20-day period, so at what point do the adjacent neighbors or the neighborhood, would we get notified that this is going to start happening? Is there a timeline? through the builder and whatnot?
So through the chair, once the variance becomes final and binding, the proponent is just subject to the building permit process. There are no public notice requirements for building permits. So there would be no circulation like you would have received for this variance once we've issued a permit. You would know just because you'll probably start seeing work done, but you could reach out to staff to kind of follow the project. We're happy to give you updates.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Yes, ma'am, please come on up.
Hello, I too am I'm adjacent but one, so that's my house next to Rachel's house, right up on your photo.
Okay.
That's it there.
532? Got it.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Thanks. My question, and I want to thank Mr. Tsang from the town for providing some information online, which was very helpful in starting to understand the difference in grade and that you measure to the middle of the road and what have you. But because the drawings do not, at this point, show a profile of windows, particularly on the north side, I'm not convinced yet that, though the committee has recommended there are no privacy issues or sightline issues, I'm concerned that there may well be, particularly on the upper story. I know there is no access to the roof, but because we're all in those three houses are, as you quite rightly pointed out, slightly higher than other properties in the area, that any windows on that north side will have direct sight line into our backyards. Particularly, on my deck, which is an elevated deck. So I would like some assurances that our privacy and sight lines are protected.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't catch your name, ma'am. Your name again?
I'm sorry, I can't. You have to speak up.
Sorry, your name again?
My name is Jane Gilbert.
Jane, thank you. So Jane, I don't think, so you're right. I think there's a diagram on the screen, and I think, like you said, I think you saw it online as well. So there aren't yet, to your point, specific drawings that actually kind of draw out from the north elevation as to what the windows would look like. But I don't think I think it'll be part of the building permit process, correct? Or
That is correct, but I can speak to the comment raised. So the setback of this house from the north property line is over 3 meters, which is much more than what the minimum setback requirement is. It's 1.2 meters actually, and 1.2 meters is the minimum distance required in order to have windows on a wall from a property line. In terms of privacy, I don't really see the concern because a building can already be 2 stories on a property, say right beside you, and it wouldn't need a variance, and it would be able to have windows. This is a property 2 doors down now. So the height variance at hand isn't really related to that. There could always be a 2nd story with windows. So there's always going to be that potential for overlook, but that could happen right now even with the property right directly south of you.
Okay, my assumption being that the higher the house, the higher the higher the potential for.
The house is higher, which is why it needs the variance, but that's only because of how it's being measured. If you were to actually go at the grade of like the front of the house, it meets the zoning standard.
And at the point, I'm sorry, you may have discussed this with Rachel, I wasn't able to hear, but at the point that permits start to be approved, is there another hearing process at any point if there are objections to final drawings, or this is it?
This is the only public process. Building permits are not a public process. So if there is information you wanted to know, you wanted to be kept in the loop, you can just come to town hall, you can reach out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, again, we're on application A1425, 528 Poplar Avenue. Is there anybody else here to speak either for or against this application? Okay, seeing none. I'll do one final check with committee members to see if they have any questions. Okay, if not, then I will look for a motion. Okay, Amanda?
I move that minor variance application A1425 be approved, subject to the conditions contained in the staff report, as the proposal is considered minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of lands, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, motion noted, seconded by Ken. Right, any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, then I will look for a vote. And the vote has been carried. So, sir, your application this evening has been approved, and it'll now be subject to the 20-day appeal period. Okay, thank you. All right, and that takes us to the agenda item that we kicked down the road for. This was for LD 0825, part of the one that you see on the screen here. And this was for 1A, and 3 View Street. Is there anybody here to speak either for or against? No, there isn't. Okay, and nobody online either? Okay, perfect. So the committee has a staff report that was prepared by town staff that does approve the recommends approval rather for consent application LDOA 25, which is requesting a certificate of validation over the subject parcels of land legally described and as municipally known as part of Lot 10, Plan 507, Part 1, Plan 40R 31971, Town of Ajax, for 1 View Street, for 1A View Street, which is part of Lots 9, 10, Plan 507, Parts 2 and 3, Plan for our 40R 31971, and 3 View Street, which is also part of Lot 9, Plan 507, Part 4, and this is also 40R 31971. So my understanding is that this is coming up because we've actually, I think there was a issue in the conveyance and the transfer of the current owners in contravention of Section 50 of the Planning Act. So from a process perspective, I believe we're just trying to validate, make sure that the committee is in agreement with the validation of this certificate, correct? Is that a motion then that we need? If I can just seek for somebody to make that motion. Amanda?
I move that application LD 0825 be approved.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any second discussion on the motion? Seconded by Tomas? Okay. All right, then I will look for a vote. And the vote has been carried, so application LD 0825 has been, the consent application has been approved to request a certificate of validation. All right, and that takes us to the end of our formal agenda. We now are at other business or new business. Any other business or new business from committee members? Okay, from town staff? Okay, and then I'll look for a vote, or a motion rather, to adjourn. Ken? Seconded by Amanda. And look for a vote. And the motion has been carried to adjourn, and we will now adjourn this meeting at 8:16 p.m. on April 30th. Thank you.